Good morning. It is Sunday, September 21st, 2025. It's just after noon on the East Coast. This is Rob Sin at TO Technician on X, at Goldfinger on CEO.ca, and you're watching Goldfinger Capital on YouTube. Check out my Substack as well. I posted about the big move in Barrick last week. I wrote sort of a weekly wrap, charts of the week on Friday, highlighting Barrick. Fourmile Project is incredible. It just keeps getting better and better and better. So far, it looks like, I don't know, about 15 million ounces at a half ounce per ton gold. Just don't see those kinds of grades with those massive scale ore bodies these days anymore, So Barrick clearly has something very special there in the Carlin Trend, and they're starting to show it off a little bit, and we saw the big move up in Barrick shares last week. I mean, look at that chart. I mean, this is like now it's a $50 billion company. It's not often that a $50 billion company moves up 10% in a day, 13% in a week, especially a gold miner, right? So on the one hand, I look at this chart and I'm just like, this is a thing of beauty. Love this. But then on the other hand, I'm like, well, gold mining companies, especially senior producers, are not supposed to have parabolic charts, right? But that's a 2-month chart. So let's actually let's zoom this out a little bit, put some perspective here. Barrick was basing for a long time, underperforming for a long time, and as recently as like June of this year, Barrick shareholders were complaining about the underperformance, the poor performance of the company. Well, they can stop complaining now. We're up 50% since in 2 months, Barrick's up 50%, right? So the bigger the base, the higher into space, and we're seeing that in Barrick shares. Also, check out Goldfinger Capital. Not to toot my own horn, but just calling it like it is. Check out some of the stuff I've written about Barrick in 2025. Multiple times have I outlined why this is a bullish setup for Barrick, why I like the stock, both fundamentally and technically. Fourmile was a big part of why I was pounding the table on Barrick earlier in the year, and sure enough, it's playing out here. But this is still really impressive. We don't see gold miners go up 7-8 weeks in a row with this kind of magnitude move very often, but it is certainly a bullish environment for the gold mining sector. And I have noticed some people urging caution in the last week. It seems like we've got two sides of the spectrum. We've got people who are just, euphoric and bullish as can be, just buying gold and silver miners hand over fist. And then we've got people who are now on the sidelines urging caution, saying this is getting frothy, too many financings happening, price movements in some of these lower quality juniors are too far too fast. I can see both sides of the spectrum, quite frankly. I can make a bullish case, I can make a bearish case, but I will say I made this tweet yesterday, and I just say that it does feel different. It's a steadier move higher. I would say only in the last week or so have some of these charts started to get really extended to the upside. That has me a little bit concerned. But it's still early days because nobody owns gold still, right? And a lot of these generalist investors, these hedge funds and stuff, they don't have much exposure to the gold mining sector. I think what we're seeing in stocks like Barrick and AEM and Newmont is hedge funds are just chasing now, right? They're sort of realizing that they missed this and they're trying to get in. That is a little bit of cause for concern when you start to see this chase, right? But then again, I look at that Barrick multi-year chart in the base it's formed, and still this is not that big of a move when you put it into context. But we also have a wider recognition that precious metals and precious metals miners are in a bull market, right? So there's not an argument anymore. Everybody agrees. Well, that should be a little bit of a concern when everybody agrees it's a bull market. But at the same time, it's still early. It's not euphoria. Um, People are nowhere near fully invested, especially the generalists. They have very little exposure to precious metals or the mining sector, right? And so we just keep it simple and look at this chart of market cycles and the point of maximum risk, the point of maximum opportunity. Well, I still think we're probably in the middle. We're somewhere between optimism and excitement. Um, yeah, I mean, just even like the Beaver Creek, everybody agrees it was an optimistic conference, right? So we're in the optimism stage. It's not the bonfire of the vanities, thrill, and euphoria stage where everybody's riding around in limousines and taking private jets and popping champagne, right? It's the sector has suffered for far too long for people to be doing that this early in the move. Okay, so it's not the top yet, guys. It doesn't mean we can't have a correction, but it's not the top. Okay. I will say that last week, like if I pull up a chart of MMA, which is a junior copper explorer in Zambia, you can see volume really getting elevated here. And again, stock charts does not show all the Canadian volume, but shooting star candlestick on Friday, starting to get pretty extended here on the upside of this move. And I don't mean to single this company out for any particular reason. It's just an example of a stock that's had a big run, a junior that's had a really big run, and maybe starting to show some signs that it's getting pretty extended. The rubber band's getting pretty extended to the upside. Let's watch that shooting star that formed on Friday. Let's see if it gets confirmed early this week. West Red Lake Gold also had a big run into Beaver Creek during the Beaver Creek conference. Well, they just did a $36 million financing, I think. The pricing of the financing, the hard money side of it, is 95 cents. So it came back to the financing price as stocks tend to do, but then it started to rise again on Friday. So that just shows you, this is reminding me of that first bull market that I lived through between 2003 and 2007 in the sector. I remember back in like 2006, companies would announce a financing and they would trade above the financing price, right? We didn't see that during the bear market time. Remember, like in 2022 and 2023, if a company had announced a financing, it traded under the financing price and it had trouble filling the book, right? So I think West Red Lake is showing again that the financing window is open and there is a lot of optimism in the sector, right? And I just chose that as an example because it was a recent financing and it was a stock that had a nice move in early September. So I'm going to just talk about three companies because not making these videos too long anymore, just getting to the salient points and getting on with the day. So let's look at Idex first. So we'll change this up a little bit. So Idex is an Idaho explorer, new issue, just started trading in June. You can see the chart. You can see that June through mid-August is pretty flat, just sort of trading just under the 50-cent private placement price. They weren't drilling yet. There wasn't a lot of news flow, so it was kind of boring. The market kind of just stayed boring until they started drilling at the end of July. And then clearly there was some optimism that started to build around hole one at the Kismet target. And that's where we see this big green bar. It started to move up in mid-August. And as August went on towards the end of the month into early September, there was quite a bit of optimism baked in, certainly at 149 a share without any drill results yet. We're talking about like an $80 million market cap for a company that hasn't put out a single drill result, right? So it was a little optimistic there at 149 there, right before they put out the first set of assays for hole one at Kismet, right? So clearly the market got ahead of itself there at 149. there was a lot of optimism about hole one. I think the market was looking for, something on the order of 100 plus meters of 0.6 or 0.7% copper in that hole. That would be an incredible start to a drill program at a brand new target, right? So the market got ahead of itself, and the assays came in 182 meters of 0.32% copper from surface at the Kismet target at the Freeze project in Idaho. So if we just analyze it without looking at the valuation or the stock chart, well, a first drill hole in a maiden drill program at from a brand new company, not a bad start at all, right? But obviously the market had bigger expectations, had bigger hopes. So the stock got crushed, dropped down to 54 cents. Pretty big drop from 149 to 54. It's been consolidating over the last week or so since putting out the news. But let's talk a little bit about what's happening at Freeze. First of all, I don't think that's a bad first result at all. Obviously, it wasn't up to expectations. There was some disappointment, but let's be realistic about it. First drill hole at a new target. A lot of companies would just drill a duster, right? This wasn't a duster. It just didn't live up to high expectations of the market. Here's the section map. Here's hole one at Kismet, ended at 278 meters. Here's hole two, right? So this one went much deeper, 422 meters. And if we look at the, lithology here, there's room for some optimism that hole two could be better than hole one. I don't know how much better. Could it be 0.4%? Could it be 0.5%? I don't know, but I think there's a good chance that it will be better than hole two, and certainly a wider interval. Look at the dark blue, which is the breccia, which seems to carry the grade. If we just look at hole one, most of the grade is at the top of the hole here in the dark blue. So the dark blue is much thicker in hole two. That's a positive. And you even get some dark blue down here towards the bottom of the hole. So that's just a simple analysis that tells me that hole two could be better than hole one, and also the fact they drilled it deeper. They usually end the hole when they think they're out of, the min. They keep it going if they think they're in min, right? And then look at this one, showing the MT. So hole two kind of got out of it, and you can see it got into higher, resistivity areas down here towards the bottom of the hole, and that didn't really have much grade in it, right? And especially at the end of the hole, it looks they were completely out of grade here. But hole two, look, it's in less resistive, more conductive rocks. So that could mean that maybe they're into some chalcopyrite down here towards the bottom of the hole. And they should have, at the top of the hole, they should have similar grades to the top of hole one. And actually, if you look at the assay table in hole one, they had some pretty good grades at the top of the hole, 0.7, 0.63. They even had some sniffs above 1%, right? So Kismet can absolutely host high-grade copper. It's been proven in hole one. We just want to see wider intervals of those kinds of 0.6, 0.7, maybe even if we get really lucky, 1% copper grades. The company said they rushed hole two. They're expecting assays in the next couple of weeks. So I'm cautiously optimistic to see the results on hole two, right? And then just looking at the MT, the slide in their deck, I mean, it looks like they've got a trend. They've got a corridor here that needs a lot more investigation, more drilling to really understand what's going on here. They've just been drilling this one little area at Kismet. They've got a highly prospective corridor that needs further investigation. And actually, if you look at, the isosurfaces here of the MT, this looks like a pretty good anomaly over here. And this area just to the north of Kismet also warrants further investigation. And if we go back to, where is it? Yeah, so you can see hole three, they're drilling it to the north off of a pad, 75 meter step out, and then they're planning to drill hole four, another 75 or so meter step out to the north. So it looks like they got a good plan. It's early days. We need more information. We need more data. But I like Idex a lot more at 60 cents as opposed to $1.49. So The expectations are a little more conservative down here. So we'll see what the assays come out for hole 2 at Kismet, and also if they give us some more information on hole 3, which last I heard was still ongoing. Hercules came out with the first results of the 2025 season. Hole 2502, great intercept, 81 meters of 1.5%. And that was within a broader interval of 350 meters of 0.66%. Actually, if you do copper equivalent, if you add in the silver and the moly, these grades are a bit higher. I calculated that the wider interval was up to 0.75% copper equivalent. That's just my math. You should check it yourself. But really, the conversation with Chris, so you got to check out my YouTube, check out the conversation with Chris. A lot of info there. I'm not going to be able to get into all of it in this quick video. But what's happening, what they're seeing in the MT and the Southern Flats, I believe, is the real story. There's a new interpretation that all of this, the Leviathan trend, this 1,300 meter trend, where they've been drilling a lot and they could probably put together a resource on this area by early next year. But this is just an extension. Maybe even this is just a dike or a set of nested dikes coming off of a much bigger porphyry center. Hey, this is speculative stuff. It's geophysics. We don't know until it's drilled. We don't know until it's a confirmation, but that seems to be a very good interpretation. What they're seeing in the MT here is absolutely mind-blowing, right? This is a very powerful anomaly, very large in scale and in terms of the magnitude of the anomaly. And also just kind of look at how this system is striking to the northwest. It's going southeast to northwest. So really, the target areas are sort of bending to the southeast here into the Southern Flats. And if we look at the property map, it's sort of like moving like this. And what's really cool about this is that you can't see it on this map, but I know because I've looked at other maps of the area. The Cutty Mountain Fault strikes the same direction, southeast and northwest, going right through Southern Flats. And then from the Cutty Mountain Scouts ground, the climax trend comes right in here to this area of focus, this new area of focus at Southern Flats. So there's a lot of confluence pointing to a major potential porphyry source here at Southern Flats, right? There's a lot we could get into in terms of how big is the resource here. I don't know. I have my own ballpark back of the napkin math. I'm not going to say it because it's sure to be wrong. You can do your own math on it. It looks like, to me, they've drilled some really nice holes here at the Leviathan trend. This hole 25-7 looks like it's going to be a good one. Some of these other ones, 25-12, could be pretty good. Looks like they've got a few misses in here as well. Hole 9, maybe hole 4 is a miss. I'm not sure. We'll have to see the results just based upon my interpretation of the depth of the holes, how they were drilled, and when they were terminated. That's my interpretation. We're going to have some hits. We're going to have a few misses in here as well, with the holes that have been drilled in pending assays. But really, it's all, to me, 25-16 and 25-22 are the main event, like the real showstoppers, right? The MT is just super compelling, and everything points to this interpretation that the real major source center is down here and in the southeast, and they've got all this ground, right? They've got, and they even added some ground here with the latest option deal with Barrick, covering even some more ground further to the southeast. The chart, I'm not surprised the market didn't jump to like $1 or something, because this is still pretty risky. I mean, it comes down to, you heard Chris say that they've got porphyry alteration at Southern Flats. They're confident in their targeting, but it's going to come down to grade. So they could have a porphyry center, but whatever the porphyry center average grade is 0.5%, and it's 700, 800 meters deep. That's probably not going to be economic, right? I mean, unless they have like 3 billion tons or something, but it's probably not going to be economic. He said it's going to come down to grade. I really think just listen to the interview a couple times. It's all there. It's all there to digest. He said it a few times. It's going to come down to grade. It's just going to come down to grade. I really think that's what it is. So that's why, this stock could be $2 or $3, or it could be, 40 or 50 cents. I don't know, but it's definitely, it's not a sure thing, but man, we're starting to get an overwhelming amount of evidence pointing to the same conclusion here. We'll just have to get confirmation from the drilling program, which is ongoing. He said they're going to drill until they can't drill anymore. So that probably means end of November there in Idaho with 5 rigs going. Final thing, Talon Metals started to move up on Friday. I like the chart, like the technicals. Definitely got some green lights here in the technical indicators. Potential breakout from a falling wedge. The falling wedge has been forming over the last 5-6 weeks there in Talon. I did a site visit last week. Fantastic site visit. That's a story for another day. I'll do a deeper video on that. But I really like the corporate culture at Talon. I like the location. And man, I love the drill core. Look at some of this stuff. It's pure metal, the vault zone. None of this is new core. They weren't showing me any state secrets. Okay, guys, so don't make up a story. This is stuff that they've announced previously, and this is the stuff they showed at the Minnesota State Fair. I mean, a box of just pure chalcopyrite, nickel, copper, PGEs, gold, and silver, just incredible. Just, it's all metal. You pick the stuff up, it's basically pure metal. So Talon for me is definitely a top pick. Obviously, that's not a secret. I've been pounding the table on that for a while. Really, really big fan of Talon. And just look at some of these colors in the bornite. We saw covalite. They've got something going on there at the vault zone, which is just really special. Some of this really high tenor copper sulfides that they're seeing in the vault zone tells you this is different. There's something very different about this discovery. Obviously, the grades tell you it's different, but I'm excited, guys. I'm really excited. Obviously, I'm bullish. I'm biased on Talon, Idex, and Hercules. So please do your own DD. And thanks for tuning in. And I hope you have a powerful trading week.